whatever your views on the Bible, I'm going to read a bit of it, okay? And I think it's quite helpful in terms of what I'm going to say next. Now, obviously, if you are not religious and you don't particularly think of anything spiritual or anything like that, then of course, obviously this video is not for you. But I've been finding stuff in the Bible at the moment which I find quite useful. And as well as sharing all the other stuff I do through my videos, I want to share some of this too. Just let me clarify, I don't believe that the words of the Bible are literally true, yeah? Not literal truth. They have to be interpreted and understood, right? But I'm going to read this part from one of the shorter books of the Bible. It's 2 Timothy, second letter to Timothy, written, I believe, by St. Paul. And 2 Timothy chapter 4 it begins, where I want to begin. In the presence of God and of Christ Jesus, who will judge the living and the dead, and in view of his appearing and his kingdom, I give you this charge. Preach the word. Be prepared in season and out of season. Correct, rebuke, encourage with great patience and careful instruction. For the time will come when men will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. They'll turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you, keep your head in all situations. Endure hardship. Do the work of an evangelist. Discharge all the duties of your ministry. Now this is the bit that I particularly like. From verse 6. For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have longed for his appearing. Thanks be to God for his word and those few sentences from that word that was recorded thousands of years ago in human history and has been re-recorded and re-expressed and retranslated over many thousands of years. Let me try and draw some things out of that I want to draw in line with just kind of what seems to be going on in the world at the moment. I love the part where he says that there will gather around them a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear. Now, okay, perhaps we don't just strictly have to limit that to theology, Bible teaching, or anything. Perhaps we can take that a little bit further. And perhaps we can think of times in our own lives where we do kind of gather around us people who say the things that we want to hear. Perhaps we say things that we hear things that even contradict the evidence. But, I like the way he uses itchy ears, because I've had a bit of earache recently. Perhaps their itchy ears so want to hear these things, they just self-select people who tell them what they want to hear. What kind of advice would I give anyone? Read widely. Check stuff out, even if it's to do with the Bible. Check it out. Read stuff in other translations. Compare and contrast sources. Yeah. Look at other interpretations. Do that with everything. Try to keep a broad outlook on all things. So I'd say that's one of the things I gather from that. But he says to this guy, Timothy, who's going to be a leader, and I think he gives him some really quite wonderful advice. But you, keep your head in all situations. That seems so kind of just basic, ordinary, flat. Well, let's not go over the top with this one, shall we? Yeah, just keep your head in all situations. There's a kind of personal message in that for me a little bit as well. And it is a kind of personal message. Try to avoid going off on one seems to be what that's saying to me. Avoid going off on one. Yeah, just stay level-headed. Yeah, you know, like breathe before you speak to oxygenate the brain, and then the brain makes some good decisions. Don't go around going, "Don't panic, Captain Mannering, don't panic." So I tend to go around going, "Don't panic, Captain Mannering, don't panic." His instruction to Timothy is remain level-headed in all things. Think about it. Be level-headed. Be even-handed. Yeah? Okay, so, and then he talks later on in 5, he talks about, but you, keep your head in all situations, we've just said. Endure hardship. Endure hardship. Do we all endure hardship? Not bothered about whether, this is a kind of religious hardship or something, but do we all endure it? What does he mean? I think probably the hardship he means there in this context is probably physical hardship. Might even be that, these people found it hard to even care for the needs of their body. It could be that. Somehow I don't see this guy Timothy living in luxury. Not even all those thousands of years ago. And he's telling him sometimes you have to endure hardship. Now, don't get me wrong. One thing that he's not telling him quite clearly is that you should seek hardship. He's not trying to sort of turn him into some sort of hair shirt wearing person who, rather than, having people speak against him, go against him, condemn him and stuff like that, that just kind of happens. Yeah. He's not saying, well, I'll tell you what, just put yourself up for a bit of that. And if you say stuff that is so incredible, then of course they'll do that. And then, you'll have got the suffering to endure that you wanted, and that'll prove that you have faith in Jesus and you have faith in God. He's not telling him to want hardship. He's telling him just to endure hardship. Maybe we could all kind of learn a little bit about enduring. Yep. Enduring to the end. Yep. And then he tells him to, discharge his duties, the duties of his ministry. Duty. Perhaps that's something we could learn about as well. You see, we have a responsibility to other human beings, but do we not also have a duty to them as well? And where would that duty come from? Common concern, humanity, human love, human dignity. That is our duty towards others, and we must discharge that duty reasonably, sensibly. And he then talks about he's being poured out like a drink offering. I rather like that. I was watching some stuff on the kind of animation of the Titanic sinking, and it was done kind of in real time almost, yeah? And you had these lovely plush carpets, and you saw the water as it was gradually flooding over these carpets, yeah? So, although you saw the carpet obviously getting wet, you still saw the pattern underneath it. And that kind of gave me some idea that he was being poured out. He was kind of being spread for the benefit of others and possibly for his own benefit. It seemed to me to also say in this image that we've got to seek our own pure water source. Yeah? I mean, I don't know, God, if you like, yeah? God is the pure source of water, yeah? It's God that we've got to drink from. And then we too can overflow that drink to others. But we got to make sure we drink the pure stuff, yeah? I think sometimes we all get, a bit thirsty and kind of just go, I'll drink in that stream there, and you don't think, there could be a dead sheep lying further up the mountainside, yeah? So let's stick with the pure stuff, yeah? I like his race that he talks about as well. I've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to conclude shortly, yeah? How do you think of his race? I don't see it as a sprint. I see it as a marathon. Do you think occasionally he'd fallen over in that race? Do you think occasionally he'd been tempted to take a shortcut? Do you think he'd ever thought about giving up? Suspect he did, yeah? But this point about endurance comes in again, yeah? And then he says he's kept the faith. Well, it kind of means what it says, I suppose. And this crown he talks about, a crown of righteousness, yeah? That makes me think that he really sees the righteousness coming from God. It's got nothing to do with him. It's not, quote, self-righteous. He doesn't either go on about him being absolutely filthy dirty and just not worthy of anything and not reasonable to be looked at. Of course he doesn't. But any righteousness he claims, any goodness he claims, comes from God. And God is going to kind of fulfill that righteousness and give him that crown. People often talk about him struggling towards the prize. I'm not so sure he has the prize in mind all the time. I think he has God in mind all the time. And that's the endurance. It comes from God. And of course it does say that, that God won't only award that prize or that crown to him, but also to all who have longed for his appearance, or his appearing. Note all. Doesn't say particular faiths, doesn't say particular genders, doesn't say any particular group. It just says to all who have longed for his appearing. Longing for God's okay. Yeah, it is okay. It will be satisfied. Your hunger will be fed. Your thirst will be quenched. Well, look, it's nearly 15 minutes, so this is probably not going to have the most huge appeal on my Facebook page, but if you found it useful, please add some comments about what you think on 2 Timothy 4. And right from where I began, right till the end, it ends at verse 8. So 2 Timothy 4, 1 to 8. Thanks for listening, and God bless, and I hope you have a wonderful Christmas with you and those whom you love.